Hey YouTube family, welcome to my channel. I have a ton of holiday inspiration for you, so let's get to crafting. So I found another Dollar Tree wall decor piece in my craft stash, and it's seen better days because actually a piece snapped off, but that's okay. We're going to remedy that. I'm going to go ahead and go over it with my sanding sponge to remove some of the glitter, and then I'm going to hit it with some of my black chalk paint. So through the magic of YouTube, here's what I got going on now that those pieces have had a chance to dry. And these are the two top portions of the sleigh. And then here's the bottom two pieces all painted in white to color contrast. And so now it's just a matter of assembling all the pieces together and adding embellishments, which is the fun part. And shout out to my sister Peggy for sending me this nifty little Gorilla Glue gun with the Gorilla Glue sticks. I love it. Not sponsored, although I wish it was. But I felt handicapped without a glue gun, and now I feel like I could conquer the world. So to make life easy, I'm simply going to flip my little board over, and I'm going to go by the markings that are already down on that board from where I took it off, and that's exactly where I'm going to place them. So as mentioned, I'm going to come in with my hot glue gun and add some of that Gorilla Hot Glue. I'm going to add a nice bead right down the same line where it originally was. And it'd be nice if I would have added a fresh stick of glue before starting so I wouldn't run out. After replenishing my glue stick, I'm going to simply finish out that corner end where I left off, and then I'm going to come back in to where I had previously added glue before just to ensure its security, and then I'm going to place that stick down and firmly hold it into place for a couple of seconds, and then I'm going to repeat the process on the opposite side. Following suit and using the markings that are currently on the board as a guide for proper glue placement, I'm simply just going to be adding that glue right along those markings, such as we did before. And then I'm kind of using my grit. It's kind of hard to see, but I'm using the lines that are on the grit to kind of keep it straight. And then I'm going to place it down and press it down into place for a few seconds. So here's what we got going on after tacking down all those pieces and reassembling the decor. Now that everything is all put together, we're now ready to move on to start embellishing it. And I went ahead and I cut out a vinyl decal using my cutting machine. And so now we're going to place this down on the top portion of the sleigh. From there, we're simply just going to remove that vinyl from its backing, and we're going to place it onto the top portion of our little sleigh, but we're not going to press it down firmly yet until we're sure of the placement. Once I'm satisfied with the placement, I can now go over it firmly with my Cricut scraping tool, and I'm ready to remove that transfer tape. And I'm just going to carefully keep pulling up until I reveal that image, and there you have it. So I had this Dollar General ornament that I accidentally deleted the footage of me removing the artificial greenery from it, and I simply just yanked that off, as well as me snipping the hanging mechanism from it, because remember, this was an ornament, because I'm really just feeling the simplicity of the snowflake in itself. From there, I'm going to grab my hot glue gun and I'm going to hit this little snowflake ornament with a blast of this hot glue. And I'm going to try to mainly focus on those raised areas that are going to be touching the board in itself. And I'm going to be really generous. And then I'm simply just going to place that ornament flat down in the center of my board. I'm going to try to center it to the best of my ability and press it down firmly and hold it in place for a few seconds. From there, I have these do-it-yourself self-adhesive ornaments from the Dollar Tree, and I'm loving the natural wood. And so I'm going to be using just the snowflakes for this DIY. And they have an adhesive backing on it, but I don't have a lot of confidence in that adhesive backing. So I'm going to be adding a dollop of hot glue to adhere them onto the board. So I'm simply just going to be attaching one on either opposite sides of the sleigh, and then one on the top by where it says "Let It Snow." So I'm just going to be adding a bead of glue right on top of that adhesive backing, right on top of it, and then I'm just going to simply attach it to my board and gently hold it into place for a few seconds. Now I'm going to mirror the process on the opposite side by following the same procedure. I'm adding a bead of glue right on top of that adhesive backing and pressing it down onto the board. And I'm going to repeat the exact same steps for this little snowflake that's on top of the Let It Snow board as well. I'm going to add that glue right on top of the adhesive and press it down into place, and that's all she wrote. So to add a pop of color and some interest, I decided to take this piece of pick that I have and I just intertwined some berries with some pine and created like a makeshift swag, if you will. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it to the corner, not to take away from the Let It Snow, but I kind of want it to cascade down like a swag. So nothing to it but to do it. I'm going to add a nice generous amount of glue right onto that pine pick, and I'm going to attach it right to my board. No rhyme or reason. We're just going to be generous with that glue, and you're going to have some webs here and there, but that's okay. And you're going to press it down onto your board, and we're going to call this a finished project. So from the Dollar Tree, I have one of these mason jar decor plaques, and I actually repurposed this little mason jar on another DIY, and I'm repurposing it again, so I don't have the footage of me painting it, but that's what us crafters do all the time. We repurpose and reuse our previous DIYs. So I am going to insert a picture, however, here in this video so you can see how it looked prior to me painting it. So to begin, I'm going to be taking some of this red felt from Crafter Square, and I have this lid. It's just a round lid from a little Dollar Tree container. So I'm going to take that lid and I'm going to be tracing it out onto the felt to create a circle pattern. So to do so, I'm going to be using one of these metallic marker pens from the Dollar Tree, and I'm simply just going to be tracing around the perimeter of that lid to create a circle pattern onto this felt so that I could cut it out. So now we're going to reveal our pattern to be cut and do any touch-ups if needed. And I'm actually closing out the little circle here because remember I had that little tab there. So I had to close it out. And now I'm simply just going to get my scissors and I'm going to cut out this pattern. So I find it easier to just cut myself out a small manageable square first. So I'll cut out like a small square shape from the felt so that it could be more manageable for me to get to that circle pattern and cut it off, if you will. So I'm just going to continue to cut out that small little square as you see, and then I'm going to take my scissors and go right in and start cutting on that pattern. And now I'm able to comfortably continue to run my scissor all along that line that we traced on the belt to form that pattern and get my circle shape ready to move on to the next step in this project. So I'm just going to continue to cut out that shape, and now we have a perfectly round circle and we're ready to move on. So now that I got my little circle all cut out, I'm going to be removing that twine that's on the top of the lid, and I'm going to be repurposing it. So I was able to remove that twine pretty much intact, which is a good thing because we're going to repurpose it. And now I'm just going to throw that felt right on top of the mason jar, and I'm going to try my best to evenly distribute it, both front and back sides, try to get it even. And then I'm going to pinch the sides together and hold it in place so that I can slip that same ribbon, or I shouldn't say ribbon, the twine that we took off that was originally on it. I'm going to slide it right back over the felt. So I was able to manipulate that twine without having to unravel it simply by sliding it down over the mason jar. And there was just this one little piece that became unattached and it has some overhang to it. So I'm just going to snip that little tip off that has the overhang. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to hit it with just a little bead of hot glue using my hot glue gun so that I could tack it down onto the other remaining twine that's on the mason jar and press it down into place. So here's what it looks like now that I got that twine all tacked down. And the reason why I opted to put the fabric on first is because I went ahead and I cut out a decal using my vinyl cutting machine. But I wanted to make sure that I put the fabric onto my mason jar first so that it wouldn't cover or take away from the decal image, if you will. So I made sure to put the fabric on first to ensure proper placement of the decal. And now to finish out this project, I'm simply going to be detaching that vinyl decal off of its backing, and I'm going to gently place it onto that mason jar, and I'm going to take the image and pull it down towards the bottom of the mason jar. This way that fabric doesn't cover or take away from the image, if you will. And I'm not going to press down on it until I'm 100% sure of the placement. So now that I'm satisfied with the placement of my decal and I went over it gently with my Cricut scraping tool, I'm now ready to reveal my transfer. And I'm simply just going to start at the corner down on the bottom, and I'm going in a diagonal, and I'm slowly but surely pulling up on that transfer tape, being careful not to damage the vinyl and try to be in a rush because sometimes it wants to come up with the transfer tape. And this is in real time, and there you have it. Our transfer is complete, and we now transferred the decal onto the little mason jar. And feel free to go over it with Mod Podge to seal that in, but because I like to recycle my projects, as I said earlier, I'm not going to put Mod Podge on it, but I'm loving the way this little jar came out. So I have here one of these event arrows from the Dollar Tree that just say gifts on it, and I haven't really seen anybody come up with any ideas for these, so I decided to give mine a little makeover. So to begin, I just gave mine a quick once over with my sanding sponge and went over it gently, and then I dusted off any debris with a wipe in preparation for painting. And now I'm going to hit it with some black chalk paint. Cutting in with that black chalk paint, I'm going to focus and concentrate on giving it the best coverage I can and getting rid of all of that wording to the best of my ability. Hopefully, since it is black on top of white, I should be able to get away with just one coat, and I am going to be giving it full coverage both front and back. So through the magic of YouTube, this is what we should be left with once that paint has had a chance to dry. And I did get away with just that one full coat, and I painted front and back. So now what I'm going to be doing is I want to be giving it like a snowy weathered effect. And so I'm going to do like a dry brush, if you will. And so I barely dipped my brush inside the paint, and now I'm blotting it on a paper towel. And what I like to do is start over on the back side and just, gently go over the raised edges first until I get a little more brave, and then I flip it around to the front. So now that I got a little more brave, I'm just depositing whatever's left on that brush. I've never dipped it back into the paint. This is just all what's left on the brush. And I'm just going over lightly onto all the raised areas, the little kickstand, and the entire arrow in general. So now that I got comfortable with it, I'm flipping it over to the front side and I'm following the same procedure. I'm just going to go over the little raised areas first on the little stand, you know, the legs, and then I'm going to start on all the raised areas, the top and the sides, and then I'll just deposit whatever's left on that brush throughout the entire arrow and just finish it out. So I'm depositing whatever's left on that brush onto the arrow, sweeping it across and never dipping it back into the paint. I'm just letting whatever's on that brush do its thing, and I'm going to continue to do so until I'm satisfied, and sometimes less is more, and I'm kind of feeling where I'm at right now. I'm just going to go over the little legs and that'll be it. Okay, so the drying time was pretty quick, being since it was a dry brushing that we added onto the board. And now we're ready to move on to the next step. So I wanted to include another alternative if you don't have a cutting machine, are these little wall decor stickers. And this is from the Dollar General, but I end up paying $1 as well, just like Dollar Tree. And so you can use these little wall stickers on your decor and you don't have to have a cutting machine. Okay, so after selecting my words of choice, I'm simply just going to be placing them down onto my decor sign. As such, I'm going to center the word Christmas tree to the best of my ability. And they're pretty forgiving, these little stickers. I'm really liking them. And so the beauty of it is you don't need any transfer tape or anything like that, like with the cutting machine. And you can pick them up and put them back down as many times as need be, and you could always go over them with a coat of Mod Podge to seal them in. Now I'm going to place the word farm directly underneath the Christmas tree, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to try to center it the best I can, and I'm going to place that right down underneath the word Christmas tree. Next up, there's these two horizontal Christmas trees, but I decided I'm going to place them vertically down onto my little decor board. And I'm going to place one on opposite sides of each other, right alongside the word Christmas tree farm. I'm putting one on the left and one on the right for proper placement. And that's it. That's all she wrote. And I'm calling this a finished project. And there you have it.